Well, I'm Dr. Kim Shunkwiler, and this is the PEMT 100 pulse electromagnetic field device. I've got into learning about PEMF about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and we've had just amazing results with our patients in the last year treating them. It just does amazing things for people. And people ask me all the time, is this good for MS? Is this good for Parkinson's? Is this good for bad shoulders, bad knees? You name it. But what this is good for is restoring cellular function. Okay? And I think if you think about it, the basis of almost any condition you name, every condition you can name, is cellular dysfunction. The cells aren't working right. Every cell in the body is its own little factory and home. It's got a cell wall, and inside it's got little things called mitochondria. And these mitochondria produce energy in the form of adenosine triphosphate. You don't need to know that. ATP is for short. But the ATP goes to little pumps in the cell wall that rock like that, and they open up and they let sodium and potassium move through the cell membrane. And that gradient, or that differential between sodium and potassium, creates what we call a transmembrane potential. Now, this transmembrane potential is actual electrical charge that can be measured. In a healthy cell, it's negative 70 millivolts. Now, you don't need to remember that, but when a cell becomes sick, ill, damaged, whatever, that transmembrane potential goes down. This mitochondria don't produce the adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, like they normally do. The pumps don't work. So what happens, the end result of that, is that you start getting a buildup of sodium inside the cell as opposed to the potassium outside the cell. Now, what the PEMF does, it provides a very high intensity magnetic field, almost twice as powerful as an MRI, but it's on a very short pulse, nanosecond, like a billionth of a second burst, boom. And when it hits that cell wall, that energy goes through there, because it goes through everything. It'll go through your shoe, your clothing, whatever. That's why you don't have to take your clothes off to get treated, because it just goes through everything. But when it hits that cell wall, it energizes that mitochondria. The mitochondria starts producing ATP. ATP starts feeding the little sodium potassium pumps. What happens? They start working like they should. You start getting the sodium out, potassium in, and now you take a cell that wasn't working good and wasn't, it was an unhealthy cell, and you start turning into a healthy cell. We call that healing in that situation. So it works on restoring the function of the body. It was 2 years ago my son was diagnosed with cancer, and it was stage 4 when we found it. So he was pretty sick guy, and I was looking everywhere on the internet, everywhere I could find, to try and find a way to save him. I found a website hosted by Dr. Gary Gordon. He's an MD, DO out of Arizona. Speaks all over the world. He's a very brilliant guy. In January of 2011, he started talking and raving about pulse electromagnetic field therapy. And I started getting interested from what he was saying. Now, I have to backtrack just a little bit, because when the medics gave up on my son, he went to see a DO in Ann Arbor, and the first thing this guy did was send him down to Toledo, Ohio, to Dr. Roberts down there. He's a cardiologist. He has a huge 10,000-pound magnet in his office, and then my son was supposed to go there and spend 200 hours underneath this magnet. And he was supposed to go, and he would go at night and sleep under the magnet, supposedly. Well, he had so much tumor mass in his chest that the only way he could get treated was laying down on his back, and he couldn't do it, because when he lay back, the tumor mass would compress his heart. It would be very uncomfortable. So that's all I knew. Now, after Ben passed, and I started getting interested in the PEMF, his best friend, the one that took him down to Toledo to spend time with him, was in the office one day, and I had the website up, and I had a picture of the machine. And we're talking, he looks over and points at the computer screen and says, "Hey, that's what they used on Ben." I said, "I thought they used this big magnet. He said, well, they couldn't use that. I said, well, I remember that. He said, well, they wheeled this thing in. They wrapped this rope thing around his chest because he was sitting in the chair. They turned it on. He started breathing normal, went right to sleep, and it was the most rest he'd had in months. He said it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. So he looked at that. He said, that thing's a miracle machine. So for me, getting involved with PEMF wasn't my choice. I was meant to do it.